Hey, how you doing? Welcome back to another review with Ivan Batista. This time I'll be reviewing or submitting a new homework for my English. This time I have to submit my IR as an economic subject. I'm sorry if I don't do much of eye contact to the audience. This is due to the fact that I have all my information in my computer, all the questions and the answers as well. I'll be trying to give you most of them without reviewing them once again. Going back to the first question, it states identify the major debates within IR. Why do debates often linger on without any clear winning emerging? So the first debate within the IR is the utopian liberalism and realism, traditional approaches and behavioralism, neoliberalism, and Marxism. The emerged fourth debate is between established tradition and post-positive alternative. Going back to the question of why do I believe that debates are often linger without any clear winner emerging, I do believe that sometimes it is hard for a certain debate to have a winner. That is, of course, if the other candidates do not have any arguments to impose what the other one is saying, juxtaposing sometimes the both subjects, it's kind of hard. But I believe in this case is sometimes that if you don't have the proper arguments or don't have more arguments than the other person that you're debating it, well, therefore you're gonna lose. Of course, regarding to the public, of course, it is if perhaps the arguments that you're throwing out there don't have any balance or any fact for the people. Moving on to the new question, which are the established theoretical traditions in AR? Well, there are four major established theoretical traditions: realism, liberalism, international society, international political economy. Okay, those are the four theoretical traditions in the system. Now, how can they be seen as established? The established tradition deals nonetheless with international problems that are of less significance: war and peace, conflict and cooperation, wealth and poverty, development and underdevelopment. Now, the next question goes: why was IR strongly influenced by liberalism? My apologies. Well, this goes back to one of the questions that we have here in the report that we're reviewing, pretty much on page number 36. It states that is the big question. Why was the early economic IR influenced by liberalism? United States was eventually drawn into the war in 1917. It is military invasion decisively determined to outcome the war. It granted victory for the Democrat alliance, U.S., Britain, and France, and defect on the autocratic Central Powers, Germany, Austria, and Turkey. At the time, the United States had the President Woodrow Wilson, who had been a universal professional of political science, who also said it was a main mission to bring liberal Democrats' values to the Europe and to the rest of the world. Only in the way he believed could another great war be prevented. In short, the liberalism way of thinking had a solid political backing from the most powerful state in the international system at the time. So basically, going back to why I is strongly influenced by liberalism, it really comes down to the United States. At the end of World War, they believe they came up to be one of the strongest countries that end up winning. Therefore, when you are one of the powerful ones to win in a fight, you become, just the one with power. So everybody else was to start to respect your values and what you stand for. So that's pretty much why liberalism was the first one to be imposed to the country, to the world. Now, moving on to the next question here, we have why was the seen over the long terms, realism is the dominant theoretical tradition in the IR. So why this? When in the international relation took the shape of the East-West Conference in the Cold War after 1945, realism again appeared to be the best approach for making sense to what was going on. Basically, realism became the dominant way of thinking about international realism, not all among scholars, but all among political and diplomatics. Montaigne and Summers of the Realism in his 1948 book became the standard introduction to IR in the 1950s and 1960s. Yet it is important to emphasize that the liberalism did not disappear. Many liberalism concede that realism was the better guide to international relations in 1930 and 1940s. But they saw this as an extremely abundant historical period. Liberalism, of course, rejected the deeply pessimistic, realistic ideas that humans were plain bad. This, of course, came quoted by information here. You have it's right 1991, 25. And they had something strong counter arguments to that affect the deal. Finally, the post-war period was not only about the struggle from the power and survival between the United States and the Soviet Union and their political alliance. It was also about corporations and international institutions such as the United Nations and many specialized organizations. Although realism had won the first debate, there were still competing theories in the discipline that refused to accept the permanent defeat. So this is pretty much just an argument that was given to us, as mentioned in the past. It's pretty much based on arguments that you're going to be able to impose something to others. And of course, yet it's when you the country or if you're the toughest person there. And if you win to all the other people, then you're going to be crowned as number one. Then most of other people are going to start to rethink their value and start to approach what you believe. Now, the last question is, why do scholars have pet theories, and what are your own theoretical preference? Again, in the report here, it says, in order to understand how the debate emerged, it is necessary to be aware of the fact that the first generation of IR scholars were trained as historians or academic lawyers, or were formal diplomatics or journalists. They were often brought as humanistic and historical approach to the study of AR. This approach is related to philosophy, history, and law, and characteristic above all explicit realism upon the exercise of judgment. Now, one of the things I believe that all these people came up with theoretical preference and how they started to believe in, realism, liberalism, and neoliberalism and Marxism is pretty much because of the years that this took place. We got to remember that all major wars came up during these years. First World War, in between the Happy 20s, Depression came here. Also, Second World, and what about talking about United States and the Soviet Union? So because of that, I believe that everybody came to the thought of all these major events to follow. I do believe that the theoretical preference come back to the environment of your. It's pretty much due to your environment. What it's surrounding you, that you're gonna come up with new preference. Well, that was basically all I have to provide. I'm sorry that I wasn't viewing you guys. However, this is all the information. Thanks for being put. To the next time. Bye bye.